Mr.
Thank you very much, dear President. Thank you for the opening remarks. If you bear with me, I will try to share my screen so that we can all view the presentation. George, could you confirm that it's visible on everyone's screen?
It looks fine.
Great, thank you. So thank you very much, first of all, for the organization of this event. It's an important event for us because we do want to be communicating the services that our ministry is offering, as well as the prerequisites and the ways in which companies can become part of our new processes, which we hope are cutting through the bureaucracy and offering some tangible help to companies which want to set up or expand in Cyprus. The strategy that we will be talking about today has a number of different aspects, which, as noted by the President, have to do with attracting new business, but they also have to do with attracting talent. So there is, of course, the digital nomad element, which we will be discussing as well as the corporate element. Now, of course, we need to be looking at how competitive we are as a country and improving on that constantly, and that is our aim. And through the mechanisms that we have created, we have direct access to companies, not just to help them, but also to understand what it is that they want us to improve. And so this is a very useful tool on a number of different levels. And it is, in fact, through this tool that we got a lot of very important feedback, which we were able to implement in order to introduce a more comprehensive strategy, which we'll be talking about today. So how it all started is that we started a fast-track business activation mechanism back in October 2020 after a ministerial decision, a Council of Ministers decision. We set up its operation at the Ministry of Energy, Commerce and Industry. And we enrolled some very, very important and valuable collaborators from all the ministries that had input, and particularly the Ministry of Interior, to do with the permits that we need to be issuing for foreign individuals coming to work here in Cyprus as part of these businesses that become members of our mechanism. So the mechanism was quite successful. We had 25 companies joining in 1 year, which was good in terms of the numbers because some of these companies were very value add in inverted commas, so they added to the profile of the economy of Cyprus, to diversifying the economy, to bringing in a lot of high-skilled people, particularly in the area of high tech, and some of them brought in quite a large number of people. So we were encouraged by these results. And so this fast-track business activation mechanism has now evolved into a full business facilitation unit, which has been launched since the 1st of January of this year. And already we have 133 companies that are part of it. Now, the business facilitation unit provides a lot of services. Some of them are formal and some of them are informally provided. Now, the main responsibilities which are formally part of the ministerial decisions related to this this operation are obviously company registration for social insurance, tax and VAT, which we undertake to do within a week. And then the other important part is the acceleration and the issuance of residence and employment permits. which happens on a rather large scale when when companies are bringing in a larger number of people. And so the time frame there can vary from about 4 to 6 weeks, which we think is still quite a rapid sort of response rate considering the number of applications. And of course, that is done with the help of all the people who are part of the business facilitation unit from the various different ministries. Now, what we do also try to do is, apart from guidance and information, is to facilitate in terms of the other necessary licenses that companies need to operate in Cyprus. There are, depending on operations, whether it's renewables or real estate or hospitality or whatever it might be, there are quite a few processes that companies need to be aware of. So we are there to offer guidance, but we also go the extra mile and try to help with chasing up, facilitating, being there for companies that need information and mediation with other government authorities to make their life easier. And we are improving our services because we are in the process of digitizing our procedures and creating an online platform which will basically allow all the colleagues from all the different ministries to view the same documents, share the same documents, to work interactively at the same time, and also obviously the companies to process their applications and to view and work on their applications on a dynamic basis, and obviously online. Now, who is, just to mention the sort of time frame, we've already gone out on tender for the online system. So so the process, we hope, will move pretty fast in terms of appointing a company to do it and getting it done. And we hope that we will simplify some of the processes through the automation procedure as well. So eligible companies are basically foreign companies either operating in Cyprus or wishing to operate in Cyprus, which are fully fledged companies with a presence in Cyprus. So they need to have independent offices in Cyprus, separate from residences, separate from other offices. They need to be proper, sort of full-blown companies operating in Cyprus or setting up in Cyprus. We also have a few Cypriot companies, not foreign owned, that are also eligible based on some sectors of the economy that have been prioritized, either because of the high value added to the economy or because also of the high number of foreign employees that are needed for these companies. So Cypriot shipping companies, Cypriot high-tech or innovative companies, pharmaceutical companies, or companies active in biogenetics and biotechnology. And crucially, the maximum, now the number of employees allowed, which is usually the question, the million-dollar question that we get, is 70% of all employees can be third country nationals over a period of 5 years from the date of joining the business facilitation unit. So this is going to be reassessed over the years, and we do intend to show flexibility on a case-by-case basis, depending on the circumstances of the company and depending on the availability of qualified personnel in the areas that we're looking at. So obviously the intention over a period of time is to increase the local talent and to empower people from Cyprus as well to pursue careers which are related to the most promising sectors of the economy. But because that obviously takes time to do and to build, there will be a need for definitely foreign employees coming into these companies, and we intend to facilitate that in the best way possible. Now, what are the criteria for the individuals themselves. They need to be earning a gross monthly salary of at least 2,500 euros. They need to have a university diploma or degree or some sort of equivalent qualification or confirmation of relevant experience in a job that is similar to that which they will be doing for at least 2 years. So, and an employment contract of no less than 2 years from the time that they start their employment. So those are some fairly easily met criteria. I think we can all see the reasoning behind them. The duration of residence and employment permits is up to 3 years. And we issue them within 1 month, as I said earlier. Now, it is also possible for such companies to employ support staff, which is something that was previously not an easy option. And third country nationals, obviously, I mean. And it is possible provided that they do not exceed 30% of all support staff, and provided that the employer and the third country national have entered into an employment contract which has been duly ratified by the competent authority. And salary levels vary according to the applicable legislation at the time, obviously, of the employment. And again, the duration of the permits is up to 3 years. Now, a very important part of the strategy and making it more attractive was to make sure that family reunification is possible through it. And so this has been changed, and we hope that it has been changed for the better, with immediate and free access of for spouses whose financial supporter, whose main applicant, let's say, has obtained a residence and work permit in the Republic, and who also receive a minimum gross monthly salary of 2,500. The process of granting Category E work permit for long-term residence status has been simplified and shortened. We understand that that was one of the long-awaited reforms, which has also been introduced. Now, of course, social insurance has always been an issue with third country nationals, and whether the social insurance that they pay in Cyprus would be would be contributing to their benefits, to their position in their country of origin. And certainly we have intensified the discussions that are going on with the different countries of main interest that third country nationals come from, in order to conclude bilateral agreements with these countries. And of course, the goal is for whatever contribution made here to be able to be transferred on the conditions that that no rights were acquired over here. So, of course, we've noted there that we have various agreements in place, but and various double tax agreements in place, but some of them cover these issues satisfactorily. Others, there are discussions with countries where we are trying to make these improvements. In terms of the digital nomad, then, which is a very popular term these days, and it's a very popular concept, a lot of countries have introduced particular measures and incentives to attract these individuals. In Cyprus as well, we have specific provisions for these individuals. Now, the beneficiaries are third country nationals who are self-employed or salaried employees who can work remotely, with obviously either clients or their employer being outside Cyprus. And we have set a limit of 500 such visas at the moment. Now, this has already been revised upwards from the 100 that was originally, I think it was 100 that was originally authorized. So it is a flexible strategy. We are looking at the numbers and how popular it is, and of course the 500 is not necessarily set in stone and will be revisited if the need arises. Of course, there are some criteria, so and some benefits. The benefits are that the digital nomads with visas, such visas, can stay in Cyprus for up to 1 year with the right to renew for another 2 years, and they can be accompanied by their family members whose visas will expire at the same time as those of the main applicant. Now, of course, the tax residency of these individuals and the status of that will depend on how long they spend in Cyprus. Obviously, for Cyprus, the 183 days, benchmark is utilized, but it's very important for such individuals to see whether they break residence in their country of residence and what the status is over there before they can determine, what their obligations will be in each of the countries. And I'm sure that their advisors and employers can advise them in that direction. Now, as we said, there are also some preconditions for the digital nomad visa. So we need evidence that the person has sufficient funds or a stable income to cover living expenses during their stay here. This is set at 3,500 per month net, which can be proven by, of course, their employment income or a bank account if they are self-employed. And do not have another way of certifying the monthly income. And for the spouse, this is increased by 20% if the spouse or partner is coming with them, and by 15% for each child. And they do need medical insurance and a clear criminal record from the country of residence as well in order to be eligible. Now, last parts of the presentation before I leave you to listen to Yanis about why Cyprus is a good place, is tax incentives. Tax incentives have been broadened, or at least that is the plan. Parliamentary approval is required actually for these to go through. So the tax exemption of 50% to new residents who are employees or have employment income of 100,000 is now going to be reduced to 55,000 and above. This also has been a very big sort of request coming from all our companies that are foreign owned for quite a number of years. So we did have some discussions in Parliament in the past about the possibility of reducing that level, and hopefully this time, given that there is a comprehensive strategy and it is met with success, hopefully this will go through without much difficulty. So the draft bill is currently under consultation for this specific aspect. And another important change, which again will, I think, benefit a lot of companies, is that the 50% tax exemption for investment in innovative companies should also extend to corporate investors. At the moment, it only applies to individuals, and that indeed is something that limits or doesn't incentivize companies to invest in innovation as much as they could. So again, we do hope that this change will be approved. And increased tax deduction for research and development expenditure. Again, this is a sort of not inflated, increased discount on research and development expenditure by 20%. So if the actual expenses are 100%, obviously the tax deduction that will apply will be 120%. So again, this we hope will incentivize companies to spend more and invest more in research and development here in Cyprus. A aspect of specific interest to a lot of the employees that are joining these companies and want to know whether and when they would have a possibility to obtain separate passports and naturalization here in Cyprus. Now, a very important reform is that the right to apply for naturalization will be revised so that it can happen after 5 years of residence and work rather than 7 years, which is what is currently applicable. And this will be further reduced to 4 years if one learns the Greek language and has very good knowledge of the Greek language. Again, this requires parliamentary approval, so we do, again, very much hope that it will be met with the approval of our parliament. So, in general, these are the reforms that we plan to do. Some of them are already in place, and some of the changes are already helping us to provide a better service to companies that are part of the business facilitation unit. But as I said earlier, the very presence of the BFU is helping us to have better contact with the companies that are actually operating here in Cyprus and to have a better understanding of what it is that they would like us to improve on. So hopefully this will be a part of an ongoing process of improvement of our services, and of course seminars such as today's one really help us also to have very useful discussions and to understand where we're doing well and where we're doing perhaps less well. Before I close, I'll just note that we have two very important people from our business facilitation unit. One is Mr. Konstantinos Karagiorgis, who's heading the unit from the Ministry of Energy, Commerce and Industry, and the other one is Mrs. Panagiota Fotiou, who is heading spearheading the effort from the Ministry of Interior. So if there are any questions on the actual processes and details, we are very happy to take those questions, and I'm sure that Konstantinos and Panagiota will also be available to help out. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Minister, for your presentation. And now we move on to Mr. John Georgoulas, who will tell us why Cyprus.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to our event. I'm not going to say why Cyprus, because I think this has been answered already by our minister. And Natasha told us what the government is doing already in order to attract digital nomads. I will I will be very brief and say some things about what is a digital nomad, some pros and cons, and I will try to make you think what you could say to your clients or your friends in order to become digital nomads in Cyprus. So a digital nomad is someone who makes a living online mostly while traveling. Because of their location independence, digital nomads rely very much on a strong Wi-Fi, and I think that in Cyprus we are on a very good term relating with our internet providers. So they can work from any location that is suitable for them. In many cases, digital nomads, they do freelancing work, so they work for a variety of clients. But this doesn't mean that they are not able to work for companies as well. A digital nomad job needs to be location independent, something that you are skilled at, and easy to do offsite according to his own schedule. Now, let me give you just some brief statistics so that you can see what is happening in the digital nomad world. Worldwide, there are currently about 35 million digital nomads in 2021. And most of them, they live in hotels and with their families, Airbnbs and hostels. Most of the digital nomads are married, and fewer are unmarried. And the average digital nomad is 32 years old. So as you can see, the crowd of digital nomads is a very dynamic and young crowd that also spend money where they are based. Some of the jobs that usually digital nomads do is they are graphic designers, they are web developers, app developers, freelance copywriters, they are content writers. Many of them, they work in digital marketing and strategy and other positions. They are search engine optimization specialists, bloggers, they are course creators, online tutors, coach or consultants, videographers, podcasters, social media influencers, translators, virtual assistants, or they can also be accountants or project managers. Now, some of the pros of being a digital nomad is that they have flexibility. One of the main advantages of being a digital nomad is that while working remotely, they can be flexible to work on their schedule, decide when to work, and enjoy traveling. As I said just now, travels. A digital nomad can travel more frequently and experience different countries and cultures than someone who is working in a regular environment. Community. The digital nomad community is great. Is a great way to meet new people and make friends as expats. The cost of living, as a last point, is low. So a digital nomad can reduce overall expenses by comparing the cost of living in different locations and moving to a country with a lower cost of living. Now we have also cons of being for someone to become a digital nomad. So usually they become homesickness. Depending on where they end up traveling, they might be far from family and friends. So they might have the good experience of traveling in a foreign country, but they miss their home and the family. There is a possibility of increasing spending. So as a digital nomad, they must spend sometimes most of their money in travel and experience that usually they don't have in their home places. There is a lack of motivation. While traveling, it's easy to feel distracted and unmotivated to work. So many of the digital nomads, they lose the motivation for what they're doing. And last, there are plenty of administrative complications. And this is something that exists in most, if not all of the countries with such schemes. So working remotely from a different country requires permits, tax codes, and other things that for some people it's hard to do by themselves. So different countries, they have separate rules and regulations, which makes it difficult to organize. Now there are many surveys that usually expats and digital nomads they look up to. I will give you an example for the HSBC 14th expat survey that the top 5 goals that expats look forward to achieving in the next 2 months were getting to know the local area, traveling, understanding and exploring local culture, making new friends, and going out more. So, on top of that, 65% of the expats are feeling optimistic about the year ahead. 75% of the expats are optimistic normality will return soon. Everyone hopes that. And 71% Asia ranked as the highest region for optimism about the year ahead. Now, according to the work motion for the cities best facilitating remote work index, Athens ranks on the 29th position globally, higher than London, Paris, Rome, or Chicago. Our program is a new program, and because of the nice weather, the environment, the incentives of the government, we aim that Cyprus and specific cities of Cyprus will run high in the next indexes. Now, there are 4 categories that usually these indexes look into when they do the surveys, and I think that these are categories that every country is looking into before they produce these digital nomad schemes. So the first category is remote working compliance. So the ease of compliance, the legal requirements, and remote worker visa availability are the ingredients of this aspect. The cost of living, taxes, cost of housing, access to housing, city affordability is the second in place. The civic infrastructure, political stability, safety and security, minority equality, LGBT inequality, gender equality, quality of public education, access to healthcare. These are main reasons in the civic infrastructure world. And last but not least is livability. And what they are looking at is happiness, cultural attractions, museums, and other places, and mobility. Mobility, I think, is something in Cyprus that we are a bit lacking back, but I'm very optimistic that in the next years we will find solutions. That's it for me. I hope I was informative. And George, thank you very much for this invitation to share with you some more common things about what the digital nomad is.
Thank you, Mr. Yorgula. Okay, now we will go with the question and answer section. We have a couple of questions for the minister. I'll just read through the chat, and if you have more questions, please write them on your chat. So, hello, and thank you for this useful webinar. The number of employees allowed, is there a minimum number of employees a company of foreign interest must employ? May a company register and have one non-EU employee? Also, how has category E been simplified exactly?
Okay, so in terms of the limits, there are no limits. There is no minimum number of people that have to be from a third country. So, of course, we do not have restrictions. And yes, they can have just one non-EU employee, or however many under the 70% that was mentioned in the presentation. So the 70-30 ratio is what they should be looking at maintaining, but of course if it's below 70, then there is no restriction at all. And indeed, you know, whether there's a benefit or not to joining the unit really lies in the number of people that they intend to employ from the third countries, or the complication of the licensing procedures in terms of the, you know, if they have any other licensing processes that they need help and guidance with, then it makes sense to become part of the business facilitation unit as well. In terms of the category E, I would be grateful if Konstantinos or Panayota could take that question with the details of the simplification.
I will add them now.
I will proceed with another question from the audience until we have Panayota with us. We have a question: is digital nomads have obligation to register with local social insurances? If so, this will not create conflicts with their permits, non-employment in Cyprus. Is this a bit too technical as well?
What's the question again, Leah? If they have social insurance in another country?
Have obligation to register with local social insurances is a question, and if so, this will not create conflict with the permits.
Most people have an obligation to register for social insurance. There are certain exemptions that apply for certain categories, but these are very specific. So in general, people who are employed here in Cyprus and they work here in Cyprus on Cyprus soil, let's say in Cypriot towns and areas will generally, yes, have to register for social insurance here. This should not have, this is part of the process that they need to follow when they register for tax, social insurance, etc. So it doesn't, I don't see how it conflicts with the permit issue, but I may have misunderstood the question, I think.
Thank you.
If I can interrupt the minister, we have taken, we have taken under consideration the fact that we are saying that they do not have access to employment in Cyprus. However, they need to contribute to social insurances. Therefore, the social insurance legislation requests that they are registered because their employment is based in Cyprus, even if it is done abroad. So that is what needs to be done. And we are trusting that these people will not, the digital nomads will not have contracts within the Republic.
Panayota, could you also answer the previous question since you're on the line on the category E simplification?
I would like for us to get back to you on that, everybody, because it's a very technical procedure, and I don't want to put anything out there that is not correct.
Okay, once we have the information, we will forward it to everyone.
Yes, thank you very much.
I'll move on to the next question. Category F immigration permit has a lower income requirement and a longer validity. Why would someone opt for digital nomad?
Because the category E permit is a very, again, technical permit. Permits need to be, they have a long processing time, whereas this is not the case for digital nomads. Category E, category F permits refer to visitors in Cyprus. It's a permanent residency permit. However, it is not easily granted.
Okay.
Digital nomad permits are temporary permits that can be granted on a very short examination time when criteria are met.
Okay, thank you. The next question, can you please confirm that the duration of temporary residence and employment permits for foreign employees have been extended for 3 years? That's
I can confirm that it's currently 2 years, and we are expecting that it will be 3 years when we have the approval of the Treasury. It's a technicality that remains to be put into force. An update will be put on our website when this is the case, and we can ask the Ministry of Commerce to notify everybody once we are there.
Okay.
We were hoping that this approval would come sooner. However, we are currently at its last stages.
Thank you for this. Next question. Thank you so much for this webinar. Are those who have successfully passed the Cyprus Startup Visa scheme and now is an innovative enterprise eligible for this program? Can they apply for naturalization under this program? Thank you.
Well, yeah, they should be able to. I mean, we need to look at each case separately, but the reasoning behind the eligibility criteria is that innovative companies are part of it, even if they are Cypriot companies. But of course, the startup visa participants would, now that they are companies, presumably, and fully fledged, etc., would be able to apply and become part of the business facilitation unit on the basis that they are foreign owned as well, yeah.
Okay, moving on to the next question. Why use the digital nomad visa and not the pink slip procedure?
Well, there is no pink slip procedure. What does that refer to? Pink slip is actually the residence permit itself. It used to be in a pink slip, a pink paper. It refers to a temporary residence permit. The Digital Nomad Scheme is a category of residence permit. So I don't understand the question really.
I think it was just a specification of the difference between the two. I'll move on. Are all new tax incentives applicable for digital nomads? Are new rules applicable for newly registered entities or employees of existing IT companies also eligible?
The tax incentives would depend on whether people are self-employed or part of a company, because obviously the 50% exemption is on employment income, to my knowledge, so that would need to be on someone's employment income. If they are self-employed and they have employment income as opposed to dividends and other forms of income, then yes. There are also the non-domicile provisions which could be applicable to people, regardless of the fact that we haven't mentioned them today because they haven't been subject to amendment. But yes, generally, depending on the circumstances of each person, of course, they should be eligible if they meet the rest of the requirements, and it goes on a case basis on when they joined, when they came to Cyprus, whether they meet the rules of having started employment here. I think there are certain sort of very specific conditions that need to be met for each different person. In terms of the companies, and the question was whether the companies, sorry, could you repeat the second part of the question?
Are new rules applicable for newly registered entities or employees of existing IT companies also eligible?
Yes, they are. Existing IT companies are also eligible, yes. Existing innovative companies, in fact, that are Cypriot, can also be part. So foreign companies that are existing and also Cypriot companies in the categories that I mentioned earlier in my presentation. So shipping, pharmaceuticals, high tech, innovative companies, and certain other biogenetics, etc.
And we have one more that says about the can you please tell us more about taxes for nomad holders, like social security, YESI, etc.?
Perhaps I'm not sure if Panayota is familiar with the specific provisions, but generally, as we said in the presentation, it will depend on the nomad's status. So if a nomad becomes a resident in Cyprus, generally, very generally speaking, they would be subject to taxation as a resident here in Cyprus, but whether or not what that means for their residents in other countries is something that they need to closely examine. So if they still maintain residence in their country of origin, then they would need to look at how the deductibility of tax here or there actually happens. So whether they pay tax here and it's deductible over in their countries, depending on the double tax treaty arrangement. So it's not possible to sort of generalize and say what the case is for everyone, for each specific person, depending where they come from and how long they're staying here and whether they are considered a resident here. We would need to look at the specific circumstances. In terms of social insurance and YESI, maybe Panayota can enlighten us because I'm not an expert. Thank you.
Well, it is our understanding that they can contribute to social insurance, as we said before, if they want to. However, since they are visiting, since the visitor's permit is issued to them, they do not have access to YESI.
And is that why we require medical insurance
Correct.
As well? Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. We have a couple of more questions, but they might not be so related to the Nomad scheme. We will, though, use them as food for thought for our future webinars. There was a question about the EastMed and another one about the intellectual property and the fast-track courts. So I'll give the floor to the President, Mr. Georgiou, for his final remarks.
So I think that has been a very interesting webinar with so many questions. The topic is something that everybody wants to find out more. So we particularly thank the Minister for the very good explanation of the programs and answering the questions. Also, Ms. Podiou that we supported with some of the technical parts. And Yannis for giving his perspective on the digital nomads, not only Cyprus, but around the world. And thanking also everyone that has participated and for the questions raised. I'm sure we'll be continuing the discussion on these new programs. So thank you, everyone, and have a good evening.